Planned Brotherhood is not affiliated or associated with Planned Parenthood. I'm going to do that again. This is ridiculous, man. Planned Brotherhood is not affiliated or associated with Planned Parenthood. Planned Parenthood is a registered trademark of Planned Parenthood Federation of America, Incorporated.
Have you noticed in that book that every time someone dies, Stephen King makes sure to point out that they evacuated their bowels?
No, I haven't really noticed that.
It seemed to happen a lot during that book with me.
That's what happens.
Yeah, I know. When our step-grandpa Rich died, we're over at Russ and Sherry's house, and we were telling the story about, like, he died. And
not much of a story there.
I used that as a detail, though, like that he
released his bowels upon death.
That like they went into the room and he had released his bowels, and Sherry was like disgusted with me. She was like, we don't need to hear that.
Our Aunt Sherry had some weird things, though. I remember there was one story that was passed around. I don't know. I guess they witnessed it themselves, but she couldn't listen to it because it made her so sick to her stomach. Do you remember that story? It was, as a Jehovah's Witness, she was going door to door. I think it was a first-hand account, so she was, knocking on people's doors.
Yeah.
And one particular door she went to, she was trying to tell the story, I remember now. And it is pretty disgusting, but, like, she couldn't even get through it. Basically what it was there was, like, some white trash lady that opened the door whose kid was, like, running at her feet and being obnoxious.
Oh, I heard this story.
Yeah, so apparently as the story goes, the kid had a runny nose, and the mom, rather than taking care of it with a tissue or a Kleenex, depending on who you are, picked up the kid and, like, sucked out the snot.
Yeah.
That seems illogical.
I remember that story.
Yeah. Also, Aunt Sherry had a thing about, like, when she was making dinner, it disgusted her, the very idea of, like, testing it, like, taking a little spoonful, making sure it's hot enough.
Really?
She can't do that either.
Like, she can't have anyone else do it?
She can't watch other people do it. She doesn't mind if other people do it, but she can't do it herself.
That's
Psychological
weird.
Issues, man.
Yeah.
It's got to be.
She used to be full of, like, what to me, for a hypochondriac, were really scary stories. Like, I remember one time when it was a camping trip that we were all on, I must have been real young, and I was, like, terrified of the outhouse. And I didn't want to go.
That there were snakes in there, or it was just gross?
I didn't want to go use it. I didn't know what was down there. And then, like, I think I go and, like, whispered it in Mom's ear, and then so she makes an announcement to the whole
of course she does.
Campfire, because she doesn't have anything else. She hasn't contributed all night, so I tell her something embarrassing. Hey, guess what? PJ's afraid of the porta potty. And I'm just kind of sitting there, and Sherry goes on to tell this story about I think it was a kid who sat on a toilet and a poisonous snake bit him on the ass.
Oh, my God.
And he died.
I was kidding with my snake.
And I was like, wow, I'm never going to use it now. And also one time when we were staying at their house, because you know how we always get ingrown toenails?
Yeah.
And I've always been the type of person.
I don't anymore. I don't know about you.
Well, I have one that I've had for a while. But I never clip my nails. I just rip off when they get long.
Even still?
Yeah, I never clip them.
Oh, man.
They're really weird.
I mean, my fingernails
texture.
are not to shit, but when it comes to my toenails, you got to use clippers, man.
They're still like as thin as like baby toenails. Like I can just rip them off so easily. But I did it once.
But you're risking yourself.
Yeah, I know. And I did it there when we were staying with.
Dad has no toenails. That's probably why he was doing that shit.
Yeah, I know.
People don't believe me, by the way. We got to have him prove it someday.
He's only missing his big toenails.
No, man, all of them.
No, just
our whole growing up, he had no toenails.
Yeah, I think you might be right, actually. Well, there you go. I never had a father figure who clipped toenails in front of me, so I just rip them. But
I can remember Mom like sitting there in front of Oprah or Sally Jesse, and she would actually bite her toenails in full display of the family.
Yeah, yeah.
She just like full on foot and mouth. What kind of example are you setting?
Yeah, she's a big nail biter too, which I am, and like
I
do
am
it.
too.
I'll get on one, and like it looks like I'm just straight up sucking my thumb. It must be so gross for people to watch.
That was a big problem for us. In addition to the infected toes, which were terrible. I mean,
I still have a story about that, by the way, with Sherry about infected
oh,
toes.
I'm sorry. I'll let you finish first.
All right, but don't forget what you're gonna say. I had ripped my pinky toenail to where like it got
this
kind
is
of
making me
ingrown, and so it was like really red and swollen and pussy. And we happened to be there, so I went up and I showed it to them, and she was like, "Okay, you see where the red line is? Because there's like the soreness, the toes really red, and the red kind of lasts a little bit up your foot." And she's like, "If that line starts moving up your leg, then that's not good." And then goes on to tell a story about someone who had blood poisoning.
Oh, my God.
And they saw the red line going all the way up their leg, and eventually it went into their brain, and they died. And I'm like 7 years old, and I'm just staring at it after that.
Do you think this is all coming from like Reader's Digest? Where is she getting this
I
information?
think so, but I swear it was always someone she knew. But yeah, it must be like just the weird thing, like the kid getting stuck in the microwave.
I remember the trashiest thing Aunt Sherry ever did that I saw.
Well, we're still being nice to her. But.
No. Tell me how trashy this is, though. Okay, they were the ones that had a pool. And Yakima, when we come and visit in the summertime, we'd hang out at the pool because it was like 106 degrees outside or whatever. And it's one of those above ground pools, but it was good enough, you know? And so we hung out there a lot. And I remember one time, like, she was eating pasta like a slob or something, and she got some of it on her shirt. And she put spray and wash, like, the stick on the stain, and then she's like, "Water's water," and jumps in, and I'm like, "That's gross."
I don't think that's very gross.
Maybe it's not trashy.
That seems fine to me.
That's not even a story, is it?
Biting nails, go.
Well, even before that, the infected toenails, like, you, the only time I think I've ever had an official operation outside of, let's say, some kind of oral thing is, growing up, we had the infected toenails that were fucking miserable. And for me, it was always only on my left foot, as far as I remember anyway, on my left foot and the big toe. And there was just something about that big toe, and you'd get the pus pockets on the side, and just, I mean, how many times were we brought to tears just because somebody touched our foot unintentionally?
Yeah. You know,
All it took was a touch.
That means that it was really bad, and like we should have been going to the doctor a lot more often than we did.
Right, but when I got operated on at like 14, mine never came back.
Oh, yeah. I think I've had 2 of the operations, and I have an ingrown toenail now that
I remember hearing the scraping, even though they numbed it. It was terrible.
Mine has been ingrown for since before I moved to Yakima, and it has like flare-ups.
But it's not so sensitive like it used to be.
Sometimes. Yeah, about.
So when your daughter's running around with a fork.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Tuck your feet under the chair.
Like a couple times, she'll just stomp on it and just the right way.
She doesn't know she's a kid.
Yeah, and then it's just terrible for like 2 weeks after that.
And is it hard for you to contain your anger? Fucking so. It's okay, baby.
No, it's not that hard though. My wife gets ingrown toenails.
I really want to do a Borat impression whenever you say that. I know it's hackneyed.
You can do it.
My wife.
She gets ingrown toenails, and she's got a thing. She digs at them with knives and pulls them out.
She tells me about this. Not like she's bragging, but she has told me.
Yeah.
Like she goes at her feet with scissors, and I'm like, what's wrong with you?
Yeah, and she'll do it, and like...
Don't you know how dangerous that
dude,
is?
She does that, and it's so gross. And then like... she'll go, "Oh, I think I cut it too deep."
Yeah,
and then
of
over
course
the
you did.
next couple of days, it's just like 3 times its size, and she goes back in there to
This
try
episode
to.
is kind of making me sick.
She's just obsessed with just hacking at her big toe.
I think that screams psychological issues also.
She goes for those toe operations all the time. They put acid in her,
And they
in
tell her
her
to knock
nail
it the
bed.
fuck off, right?
Yeah, big time.
Yes.
They put acid in her nail bed so that the toe wouldn't grow back anymore. And it,
The nail, you mean?
Yeah, yeah.
You said the toe itself,
Sorry,
as if she cut
the
back
nail
far.
wouldn't grow back, and I like she'd be up all night because it's just like burning. It's still burning and stuff like that. And then even with no toenail, she went in there and she was digging around.
Oh,
cutting.
that is so.
She thought she felt something in there.
That is so fucking
It's like that
weird,
movie
man.
Bug.
Yeah, it's exactly like that. We had a problem with the biting of the nails too, like fingernails.
Yeah.
I remember being in school, elementary school specifically, and just the pus pockets that would form like on every one of my fingers.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't stop myself.
I remember Dad like popping those during meeting.
What?
I have a vivid memory of Dad like popping a pus pocket on my finger
disgusting.
During a meeting.
This is so gross.
Yeah.
It got to the point the fingernail biting was so bad that they actually got that coating for our fingernails that tastes really bitter. But I think we got to a point where we just became immune to it and was biting right through it. At least me.
At first, like, it would really hurt my stomach, but I'd keep
As it's
biting
supposed
anyway.
to. That's the whole point.
Eventually, I didn't even notice it anymore.
Yeah. It was pretty ridiculous. I mean, I still bite my nails, but never is it like, whoops, went too far with that one now. I just wait for a little bit of traction, and then I go for it.
Oftentimes I'm like up all night, like just the cold air hitting where I bit my fingernail too low. Oh my god!
I get the occasional hangnail. I also pick my nose and eat it. Is that what we're talking about?
A whole back?
Usually when we've got cousin stories, it falls to dad's side because our cousins are cooler on that side. How did it come to be that our cousin Sean on mom's side, whose kid is it, by the way? I know this
Carol.
doesn't mean okay. Just for my own reference.
And he's also got a half sister who's a cousin.
Yes.
Yeah.
He absolutely does. But we were young. We were living at the house before what I consider our childhood home. Like, this was way back. And I don't know how it came to be. Like, I know that he had a rebellious streak, right?
Wait, no.
Did he come live with us to shape up?
Was he Carol's son or was he Annie's son?
It doesn't matter. These names mean nothing to anybody.
Dude, it matters. Remember Annie?
Yeah.
Who was her son? Is that Sean?
I don't know. Let's get mom on the phone.
I guess. Annie was committed.
You going to explain that further, or that's
Well,
it?
to quote mom and dad, she's in the loony bin.
Right. She's still alive, though, right?
I don't
She's
think
holding
so.
on. No?
I don't know. I don't think so.
Look how little we know about mom's side of the family. It's so weird, but it's always because I can remember Aunt Annie, like, she was crazy from the time that I can remember. Like, I don't think she was ever mentally healthy when we were alive.
Yeah.
That happened pre-us. But I can remember one particular time, like, she was coming to visit for some reason, and it was terrible. Like, we went to the airport, and we were really young, but we knew enough to be embarrassed. Like, do you remember that at all?
Yeah, I do.
I remember the airport specifically. I don't remember what came of that.
I do too. I remember you and I were like mocking her that day. Do you remember that?
We were so fucked up.
We were mocking her. And later on, she was like upset, and I was like, "Oh,
Were we doing the
Yeah, we were like sticking our teeth out really far and hitting our chest with our wrists.
You had quite the overbite anyway. That was easy for you.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess it was. I have no idea how it was that Sean lived with us, but we were young, and he was. I mean, he's considerably older than us. He was a teenager at the time he came, and he was just like constantly fucking with our shit. I know that you thought we ganged up against you, which we'll get to because there are a couple of legitimate examples. But he was like a full-on bully, and a bully that was living in our 3-bedroom house with us all of a sudden.
Yeah.
And he literally would pick you up and hold you by your legs and stuff you into the garbage can, in and out, just your head, remember?
Yeah, and how could I possibly think you guys ganged up against me with you
I had nothing to do with the garbage can dip.
Oh, you were there laughing.
Oh, it was hilarious. It still makes me laugh. I also remember he used to torment us like with gardener snakes. He'd try and scare us all the time. We'd be sitting there eating our mac and cheese, and he'd come up in the kitchen window with a fucking snake. Like, it was ruthless, man.
Yeah.
Also, one of the better stories, which we may have told, is Sean at 15 decides it's going to be a lot of fun to take my little, what does he do us? Our cousin, we established. And we were like hitting rocks. We had a huge backyard. At least it seemed huge at the time. And there was like this random tennis racket that we had. And we were hitting rocks to see if we could get them over the fence.
Yeah.
And one of the particular backswings, you were walking right by like an idiot. And like he full on smacked you full speed in the face.
Yeah, in the backhand.
Yeah, how do we? You never had a broken bone, right?
No.
Me neither. But how is that?
That fucked me up, though. I mean, I remember
There was a
pretty
lot
cut
of
up.
blood.
I don't think I lost any teeth in that one.
No. And this comes. So yeah, and I remember specifically that Dad hated Sean anyway. Like Dad and Sean had a terrible relationship.
Yeah.
And I'm sure Sean was a punk and Dad was just a raging asshole at the time. Like, so it was just this weird dynamic. But after he hit you in the face, which was completely unintentional, I remember Dad hadn't come home yet, and Mom was like using him as a threat to Sean. And so Sean goes and runs out and hides in the woods, and I go with him. Yeah, you're right. We were a gang. I forget what our gang was called. And then we could see we were just waiting for Dad to come home, and like he was freaking out. And then eventually we were hiding behind the shed just to see what kind of mood he was in.
Oh God.
It was terrible.
Sometimes it was scary when Dad came home.
But Sean's a fuck up, man. Even prior to that, at the previous house, which, God, he lived with us for a little while, I guess, because there was the time when you were basically just past toddler age. You must have been, and he
4
used
or
a
something.
karate belt to tie your legs up, and then you were like, "Hey, Mom, I'm a prisoner." I don't know what you were saying, but you came out and like smacked your face on the tile floor and lost your teeth. And again, I remember Mom like calling Dad and Sean hiding somewhere, and she's also stuffing a biscuit in your mouth to stop the blood.
To stop the blood.
As ridiculous as that sounds, at least she was trying back then. She was genuinely concerned for you.
No, I think she was just feeding me to like make me feel better.
Fashioning teeth out of bread. But that was the first of like 3 times that you ended up losing those teeth.
Yeah.
So those are fake teeth right now?
No.
No?
I guess I really don't know.
Strange.
I kind of forget. Maybe the bottom halves are. It seems like every time my teeth have come out, well, like there was that time, and obviously those were my baby teeth. But it always seems like somehow they saved the tooth or something. I think half of one of
All I know is most of your school pictures are hilarious because of the lack of teeth.
I think half of one front tooth is probably fake, and that's from when we were in daycare. I think it was our house at this point. It was our house.
But just barely.
And we were doing a talent show. We'd always like go like, it's 1:30, talent show at 2.
Kids are leaving at 3. We got to get this thing on the road.
So we're hanging up blankets and stuff out there.
As curtains.
Yeah. And I go walking.
You remember what I did for that talent show?
I remember a few different talent shows. I remember once dancing to that Bruce Willis song. I forget. I can't even remember how the song goes.
No, Dad had a Bruce Willis tape. Bruno is what he preferred to be called in the music world.
What was that song that was all popular?
I have no idea. I just remember that for the particular talent show that you're talking about, my big thing, and I thought I was a clear winner because I always thought I was the most popular kid in the daycare. I don't know why.
Yeah.
It was constantly proven not to be the case. You were chosen as the singer over me in our band. But for this particular performance, I was only listening to Weird Al. I was still in that phase, and so I chose Lasagna, and I lip synced it and did a little jig as I did it. Like it was fully coming out of the boombox. It was terrible.
Nice.
And like we're trying to line up uncooperative 6-year-olds to watch our fucking talent.
Yeah, and vote on us.
Yeah.
To be 16 again.
I don't know why you do that.
No.
The age joke you always play.
But so I'm walking through the curtains all fast and doofy like I'm sure, and Amanda McCoy comes bolting through the other side, and like I can't remember if it was half of both but I took a big chunk out of at least one of my front teeth.
On where? Her forehead.
Right there on her forehead. So she had to go get a couple stitches.
Yeah, your teeth were
I
huge.
had to do that. And I remember Dad being pissed. We were going to go to a Tacoma Tigers game that day, which is
before they were the Rainiers.
Yeah, this is local baseball.
Yeah, he took us to minor league because what could it have cost him? Like $2 to get in.
I
love those games though. I pretended not to be bored.
Yeah, we were really looking forward to it that day, and this happened pretty early in the day, so I ended up going to the dentist and getting it fixed, like all before Dad even got home. And Mom hadn't called him and told him. Maybe she was afraid. But when he came home, I ran up to him, and I'm like, hey, Dad, guess what? Today I ran into Amanda, and I knocked my tooth out in her head, and it was broken. Now I went to the dentist, and it's all better. See? Like, that's almost exactly what I said. Like, just real hyper, Dad's home, blah, blah, blah.
Plus, it's definitely the most exciting thing that happened to you that day.
And he, like, fucking flipped.
Why is that? No
out.
Insurance?
I don't know. We had dental insurance our whole lives. We just didn't know it.
I still can't believe
But
that to be true. Look at my teeth.
I asked Dad. He admits it. So not even that, just annoyance at life, I guess. And I remember later on him saying the thing that, like he said to Mom, the thing that made me so mad is that he just seemed so happy about it. Oh, Dad, look, I knocked out my tooth, but we can still go to this game.
Man, what issues?
Like,
How
was
old could you have
mocking
been?
me.
Yeah.
Like, I don't, God, 9, 8, I don't know. That started out as more of a funny story. But yeah, I think that's why the bottom of like one of my front teeth is fake. But I really can't remember. Like, I obviously remember details, but none of the technicalities.
And Sean was responsible for most of the oral surgery you had as a kid, I think.
Yeah.
Between the tennis racket and the karate belt.
Yeah.
Not only that, but yeah, you're right. In terms of the gang thing, Sean living with us, like he hated me as much as you. I think he took turns with us. Like, let's
No.
fuck with this kid.
I never remember it being my turn.
I remember him like having a snack drawer where he'd steal crackers and Skittles and shit, and he'd never let us in. And the Atari was in his room for some reason, so like we had to get his approval before we could go in there and play with him. The whole thing was a mess. But we had just come back from the pumpkin patch. You were probably kindergarten, right?
Yeah.
So it was your first pumpkin patch, and you were really proud of that pumpkin. It's not like we were celebrating Halloween, so it wasn't a matter of like it was carved in a cool way. It was just your prized possession.
I literally loved it. Like it was
like it was
like
a real person.
Like it was a baby or a friend. We did that once in school. We had to take care of eggs and like for a week or whatever. And I remember like drawing a little face on it and like washing it and kissing it and stuff like that.
What?
I really remember that. I'm pretty sure like it broke at least once, but you could just replace them.
So Sean and I get a hold of this pumpkin and just start throwing it, playing keep away, throwing it over your head, and you're hysterical the whole time. And then me, like having no grace whatsoever, I'm sure I dropped it on the third throw, and it cracked. And you tried to get us in trouble, but Mom could give a shit, I'm sure, even at the time.
So there's a big crack in the pumpkin, and then yeah, it was over. And then we're gonna give it to Grandma, and she'll make a pumpkin pie out of it.
And she did, but you don't like pumpkin pie. There's the rub. Well, you've never tried it.
Yeah. Well, that was probably the first year I was introduced to it. Now,
Is that why you're so against pumpkin pie?
I don't eat baby pie. If Sophie cracked, I wouldn't put her in a pie.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, all right. I didn't think about it that way. But Sean was, like I said, hiding behind the shed, always terrified of Dad. And I can remember, tell me if this is true. I don't know why this is a memory in my head, and maybe it was a lie that Sean was concocting to try and make us feel bad for him. But did Dad actually take Sean over the knee ever? Because it seems like I heard stories about him like tripling up on his underwear because he knew that Dad was going to be mad when he got home.
I've heard stories like that.
Yeah, do you think that's true, though?
Yeah,
Dad,
I
he
think,
spanked us, Dad did, I guess, right? Occasionally.
Yeah.
Usually it was the thump on the head, which is more humiliating and painful.
but there was like the scheduled spank every now and then.
Really?
Yeah, I remember that. Like,
So did you choose, when you chose between the wrench and the fucking Goodwill Hunting joke?
I choose the wrench. Fuck him. That's why. No, yeah, I remember like in the kitchen with a spatula.
Really?
Having to get spanked. Yeah, absolutely. Like, and I remember at one
And was
point,
I just a good kid, or did I block all this?
I think it's happened. I think anytime it happened to both of us.
Interesting.
Because he's not going to just go down the line thumping heads.
I find it it's kind of scary to me how much I don't remember, like when things like that come up.
Yeah.
Not that I'm sure like he was leaving welts on us or anything crazy, but
No, yeah, I think it's hard to remember.
But he hated Sean. Like
it really
us,
wasn't
like,
that often.
There was probably some reserve love that he wasn't willing to recognize. But he didn't act out on it. Of course, Sean was kind of a punk. Like he was. I remember one particular time he got taken home by the cops because he'd gotten drunk on a bus or something.
Yeah.
So I mean, he did it to himself. A lot of it. I'm surprised he lasted as long as he did in that fucking place.
Yeah.
Especially after the piggy bank thing.
I mean, we just weren't the family to take him in. Like, it wasn't a qualified family for Sean to go into.
No, I suppose not. And
I have no idea
crush.
how he was before that, if he was as rebellious before that.
I think that's how he ended up with us.
Did he move to us from California?
I couldn't answer that.
Who
I
knows?
don't have any fucking idea.
We saw him once when he was, like, much older.
Yeah, and then we'll get to that, too, because he still denies one thing that could only have been him. But even before that, remember how obsessed he was with our Aunt Rhonda, how hot he thought she was?
Yeah.
And he'd, like, there'd be pictures of like random pictures of Rhonda, because Mom used to be a big picture freak, like having pictures of everybody
Yeah.
not related to her. And
wall
our Aunt
space
Rhonda
to
on
fill.
Dad's side, yeah, she was a typical attractive blonde, or so everybody claimed. It's the only reason Barry ever had friends growing up, because his sister was hot. But yeah, there would be like kiss marks, and he'd do it in front of us, like just to gross us out. And then there was also kiss marks on his mirror all the time. Like he was either really obsessed with himself, or he'd. But I remember a girlfriend too. Like Dad had a big point of contention about Amy, I think her name was.
He had a
Like,
girlfriend? I don't remember that.
yeah, he brought her to the house once or twice until Dad told him that wasn't cool anymore. And there's no reason for Dad to be that way. Maybe it would have calmed Sean down.
Yeah, like I say, that was the wrong family for Sean to have to come into.
And they left him to babysit occasionally, because that's when the piggy bank thing happened, I think.
Yeah.
I had a Spider-Man piggy bank. What was yours? Popeye?
I think it was Popeye.
Yeah. And I think we had literally a quarter for allowance each week at this point, and that would go straight into our little piggy banks. And Sean was babysitting us one time, and Mom and Dad came home a couple hours later, and the piggy banks were just gone.
Yeah.
Like, didn't he steal, or maybe just the money within? It seems like the piggy
No,
banks
the piggy
just
banks
flat
were
out
gone.
disappeared.
Yeah.
And he denied it, like, years later when we saw him as adults. I was like, so now
They,
you can admit
they
to
never
that.
found him with it?
No, and he denied it to the end, but there's no rational explanation. I think he actually concocted a story where somebody must have snuck in while we were outside playing or something to steal our quarters.
Might have been one of his friends who he doesn't want to think out.
That's true. Although, do you remember friends coming over?
He probably would have told us that 30 years later. Though.
Yeah.
30 years later. When he was 30.
How old are any of us in this scenario?
When we saw him, he was like 30, right?
Yeah, something like that. He had a kid and a wife. He still has a kid. But he had changed a lot. Like, it was weird seeing him again just because.
And we were just bombarding him with, remember this, asshole?
But it was kind of fun. Like, if we'd had mics at the time,
Yeah.
that would have made for a good episode. I wonder where he's living now. I remember, I think it was only like 3 or 4, no, longer, 5, 6 years ago. I was living with Mom in that dumpy apartment of theirs they had before the house.
Uh-huh.
And somehow, like, Sean was passing through town. Like, he had some job where he was traveling and he was going to be in town. And Mom thought it was really important that we reconnect. And I remember I didn't want to have anything to do with it, and I told her as much. But one day I came home from work, and she was on the phone. I didn't know with who. And then she's like, Nick, your cousin Sean wants to talk to you. I'm like, fuck, because I suck on the phone anyway. I don't know this guy anymore.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, man, we should hang out. And I was like, yeah, man, we should hang out. It was like 3 minutes of awkwardness, and then I never heard from him again. And I only assume it's because of how terrible that phone call went.
Yeah.
We don't have anything to relate over anymore.
Plus, I'm sure he didn't even want to talk to you. That was just.
No, I'm sure not.
That was after Mom got into her I love family thing.
She loves Dad's side of the family, though, so much. Like,
Yeah.
isn't it weird? She has nothing but bitterness towards Dad. Won't talk to him. Won't be in the same room as him. And yet she's still Facebook friending all of his siblings.
I think it's just that she just
all the offsprings of those siblings.
I think she kind of sickly misses like what it's like to be in this weird family.
Yeah, because I don't know Vincent's family situation. It's
Yeah,
not like he's
I-
got parents dropping by for the weekend.
Yeah, I don't think they see any of his family. Maybe a cousin every now and then.
Used to be, but I think even that cousin ended up in jail or something.
Yeah. Yeah. So she just and
Like, her family is
but
falling apart.
She
and
does
it has
it
been
just
for-
because she wants to start shit and stuff like that. She just wants to insert herself like in people like Tiffany's lives. Have her.
Yeah, seriously.
But then she'll go to like Ashley and Cecily, and it's like, you hope she doesn't bother them too much.
Ashley gets a kick out of it. I can't speak for Cecily, but Ashley just finds the whole thing amusing and desperate.
If you look at like Tiffany's, like the pictures on her Facebook page before,
Oh, I don't.
we were
She's
blocked,
blocked now.
like Mom leaves comments under all of our
know.
cousin Tiffany's pictures, and it's all like, "Have you seen my granddaughter Sophia?" She'll be like, "Very cute." "Have you seen my granddaughter Sophia? She's beautiful." And then of course,
Whether
Tiffany,
that's true or not.
Tiffany will write back and be like, "Oh, I thank Jehovah for them every day. Amen." But yeah, the smart money is to just ignore. Like is she friends with like Uncle Dave? I know definitely
I'm sure
Kayla
she
or
is.
Lacey and Lori.
I don't know. I think I don't really get what she's thinking though.
Yeah.
Like, I won't talk to Scott. I know he's your brother, but be a part of my life. because
Yeah.
I was always fun to hang out with. She was miserable at every family function growing up.
I
Like
think,
she would just sit in the corner, and Lori has talked about this on the show.
Yeah.
Like mom is a very socially awkward person, but now I think she's overcompensating. She's trying way, way too hard.
yeah, she like,
maybe to make up for the fact that she sat in a corner.
but it's like she needs to like alter her system to do that. You know, get some alcohol or something in her in order to like.
Same reason, in order to have the courage to order a pizza, I got to drink 8 beers first.
Yeah, exactly.
It all comes from mom. All of my problems.
Yeah.
I blame dad for none of it now.
Mom will. Like, God, that baby shower thing was just ridiculous.
It always
Like,
comes back to this, doesn't it?
and you just picture that, like, and she's got to be drunk all the time because, like, she wakes up and she's like, oh, I got to drink before we go to this thing, and then just keep drinking and drinking and drinking, and then come and make it so bad. That baby shower was awful. And then
I had a lot of fun. I mean, I know mom was out of control.
yeah.
Plus, you didn't like being kind of the center of attention in terms of opening
Yeah.
presents and
That's
stuff,
the
right?
thing. That's the thing is, like, sitting in front of 40
But that's
people.
mom's fault, don't you see?
Yeah, sitting in front of like 40 people, and then she's like in the crowd, and I'm looking right at her big face, and Melissa's being a psycho and crawling around, and then mom will just go, Melissa, sit down. And like I'm sitting there the whole time, and I ate.
I don't know what these
cake.
pink panty droppers are, but they're delicious.
Yeah.
Glug, glug, glug.
Nick, I need another one of these. Can I get another? And then meanwhile,
Is there pot in this cake?
you're all fucking drunk and high and have no worries. And
I'm
you're
cracking
like,
some great jokes.
And you're like, come on, Mom, sit down, idiot, boo. And I'm sitting in front of everybody just laughing. Oh, it was so
I was
awful.
the hugest heckler that night. I thought I was so on fire. And Patrick Williams, who strangely was there, who I'd lived with like shortly before I'd fucked that up. He's still a Jehovah's Witness, but he's showing up to the pot cake baby shower. And he's just making fun of me the whole time.
Yeah.
Because every time I crack a joke, he makes like the smoking a reefer, gesture to me.
Yeah.
He knew what was up, but I still denied it. This is the same guy that while I was living with him for that short period of time, like I was still pretending to be a Jehovah's Witness just so that I could continue to live there, even though I didn't go to a single meeting the entire few months I lived there.
Yeah.
And I'm also like helplessly addicted to cigarettes already at this point, but I'm hiding that from them, but not well at all. Like I would just literally go into the backyard and hide behind a bush and take 3 drags and come in obviously reeking, and then I'd be like, what are you talking about, cigarette smoke? I never admitted to it. Even after
No.
I moved out, I was like, you're fucking insane, man. That never happened.
Yeah, and then it's a while later, and at the baby shower, he was probably pretty disappointed to see us. But he
Then
fit.
why was he there?
He fit right in. I'm just saying, disappointed to see that like we're not Jehovah's Witnesses and stuff now. Like he was having
I
a
can't believe that he believes it still. He has to know better. It's
What?
just that now he's in this rut where may as well stay in the religion. The same reason Lori stayed married for however many years.
Yeah.
Like, it's just what you do now. He's got a kid that he had outside of wedlock. Hope I'm not telling tales out of school. But he fucked up big. And then to make up for that, he, like, fully immersed himself. And that was it. Jehovah, Jehovah, Jehovah.
when it's like your family and your wife's family that are in it, and you've both been in it your whole life, and it's just like more of a like they just feel they have to do it. I think I'm not saying that this is
And I totally
necessarily-
get that. I mean, I was there for a long time.
Well, I'm not saying that that's what Pat's doing, but I could see
Yes, it
that
is.
where people who are just like so obviously just get out of the religion. I'm obviously saying nothing right here. They feel they have too much to lose socially if they leave. You know.
Yeah.
Parents aren't going to talk to them.
I mean, I feel like this is
All your
well-worn
friends are
territory
baptized.
in terms of our talking about it, but people that didn't experience it don't get it.
Yeah.
Like, they're still hung up on the us not celebrating holidays. Like, that's all they want to talk about. Even now, as an adult, I can understand that being a point of conversation when you're hanging out in 8th grade and somebody wants you to explain why you don't believe in Christmas.
right.
But yeah, to not know anything else and know that it exists, but for it to be forbidden. And sure enough, yeah, I leave the religion, and most of my family doesn't talk to me anymore. I've gotten over that because that's family that I could give a shit about. I don't approve of what they're doing. What do you think about that, Uncle Russ? I'm just saying, like, now I can see it for the idiotic brainwashing session that it was, but it didn't make it any less hard to move away from it, you know? Like, it was so hard to make that decision, despite the fact that I was making that decision privately. Like, I was fucking before marriage, I was smoking cigarettes, and I was just tired of hiding it. And, like, but that is so hard to accept. Like, I knew you'd still talk to me, and Mom and Dad had left before we did.
Yeah.
But still, like, Yakima, all of my friends, like, I had to start completely fresh.
Yeah.
It was terrifying. It really was.
I guess it was easy enough for me in the point to where
Yeah, you were married at 6 years old.
yeah, I was married and, I worked in a restaurant. I was very popular.
Never baptized. That made it easy.
I had lots of friends. I didn't have that many friends that were Jehovah's Witnesses, at least none that I was going to miss too badly. And
these friends I had, I'm sorry.
And I was smoking cigarettes by the time I quit going to meetings. Like there was like the couple last grasp, like just the last couple meetings. Like I'd go out during the meeting and smoke a cigarette. And come
Really?
back inside, yeah. Like I was just dragged there by Alvina, who was like very accepting of the religion. But
That's
like
right. She actually like got dressed up and went with you to those meetings.
yeah, and she joined the ministry school. She was going to give a talk.
Did you, really?
Yeah, she was going to be a householder. They call them.
Right.
Which is when two women do a reenactment of a.
We don't need to explain. I know.
She's gonna be on stage.
That's crazy. Did she have somebody giving her a Bible study? Like, was it going on at the house too?
Yeah, I think.
Did you guys hold hands and pray together before bed every night?
No, nothing like that.
But she believed it. Is that
fair
to say?
She was studying it.
Right. But because she thought it was something that she could believe in.
Yeah.
You realize that's how it all starts.
Yeah.
That's how it started for fucking Mom. Like, she didn't know what from what. Dad just happened to grow up in this religion. They were fucking and had kids all of a sudden.
Yeah.
And they wanted, I guess, some kind of stableness in their life.
Yeah.
Although it didn't work out that well for them.
Stability.
I'm an idiot. I am an idiot.
Anyway, yeah. When we decided to leave, like, we just stopped going, and it was nothing. Like, there was no transition. We never talked to any of those people anyway.
Yeah, but you do still have people that come to your door that you knew in your previous life.
Yeah, but
that try and sell you on it, try to draw you back in.
But
especially now that you have a kid, they don't want to see Sophia die in Armageddon.
But that's the thing, though. That's what I mean when I say that. Like, we might have had a couple of friends in there, but none that I was too worried about losing. Those are the ones who I just wish.
And what
would
about
forgive
family
me now?
Were you worried about the family aspect of it?
No, I mean, I was never baptized, so
true, man.
So I've got that to fall back on.
I don't know what I was thinking at 16 years old.
I know family doesn't like it that I smoke cigarettes and stuff like that, but I think that as long as they don't listen to the podcast, the family over there, like, they just think that
over where
in Yakima,
yeah,
they just think
Dad's
that
side, primarily,
yeah. They just think that, he's just hasn't gotten baptized yet, and I don't know what they think.
You think they still think that?
I don't know.
You don't think they hear stories about bar brawls? Yakima's a small town.
They come a lot less often. They come over a lot less often than they do anyway. And then the guy, Todd, who I used to know as a Jehovah's Witness, I told him he can stop coming. I told him it's not going to happen.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Was it like an every weekend thing? Every Saturday morning he was there?
No, but you could every Saturday you were thinking, like, let's leave before Todd comes over.
Right.
Because it wasn't every Saturday, but you never knew.
And if you're going to decide, okay, I'm going to accept the good news into my heart once again, I'm going to change my lifestyle, I'm not going to be sold on it by Todd.
Yeah.
Todd is a pretty hypocritical guy in terms of him trying to tell you that in so many words, he's basically telling you by showing up that he doesn't approve of your lifestyle and is trying to change that, trying to give you some hope.
Well, yeah, the last time he pulled up, he pulled up on me while I was
smoking.
He
cheated on his wife at a swingers party.
Okay.
And then he pretends like it didn't happen. Now he's with a new wife who he fucked and impregnated.
So
and now he's like still a Jehovah's. He was just fellowship, but all he did was sit in the back for 6 months, prove that he still loves the Bible and God by whatever he chose to say, whatever he had written on his sweaty palm. And then he's back in. He's back in, and he's trying to tell you what you need to do.
I bet
he
that
knows
was
that
like
you know that. Like, that would be so humiliating if I were Todd. Like, if I came to your door knowing that you knew that you fucked around on your wife and fucked up your life and are living in a completely situation than you were 10 years ago when we actually knew you. Like, it's fucking insane that he expects you to respect him, to believe him.
Yeah. Well, one thing is that I want to say that's a really interesting decision to have to make on the elder's part. When you're married and then you cheat on your wife and you impregnate the woman, like, they're basically telling you have to get divorced and married here because you're going to have a baby together, like, but they're still like telling you to get divorced. I think that's weird. Also, when Todd comes over and he preaches to me, I'm really not very receptive to it. Alvina made fun of me because one time, just to try to get him out of there, I was like, oh, it's not like I never think about it, which I don't. Yeah. So
God, I'm sure dollar signs in his eyes went up.
But then
I don't know why it's dollar signs.
The last time he came over, and when I do look at him, I do think of all that hypocritical stuff in his life, and I think it's a joke. And I look at his wife, and she's not nearly as cool as his first wife.
I loved his first wife.
He just looks miserable now, in his own
Todd way.
Yeah, droopy the dog way. But the last time he came, he pulls up. And I'm smoking a cigarette. I'm sitting out on this big concrete barrier in the parking lot of my apartment. And
so he pulls out the watchtower that has to do with lung cancer.
Well, I'm smoking a cigarette, and I see him pulling up. And he's in a car group. So there's a bunch of witnesses in the car, big car. And as a joke, I pretend like I'm hiding my cigarette. Like, I put a hand in front of it and give like a oops, caught me look. But it's just a joke. And then he gets out, and he literally starts, like, chastising me. Like, what are you doing? What are you doing with that cigarette?
Not as a joke? Because Todd kind of has a weird sense of humor.
He's, like, laughing around. I'm like, oh, I know. And he's like, no, I'm serious. Put that out. Put that out. And then
How dare he?
Yeah, I got a little pissed because I'm thinking in my head, does he understand that, like, I'm worldly, that I'm part of the world? Does he think I stole?
If he didn't up until that point, he knew when he saw that cigarette.
Yeah,
man.
because I guess I did tell him it's not like I never think about it. I didn't say I'm going to be a Jehovah's Witness again. But yeah, so anyway, and then like he asked about you. I told him you live on Capitol Hill. Gay joke. Okay.
Wait, he made a gay joke?
He made a gay joke.
That's not even allowed.
And then I'm like, okay.
Gays aren't allowed. Gay jokes aren't allowed.
Now I am going to put my cigarette out and go upstairs. I'm done. And so I told him, I go, look, I appreciate you coming around. He gave Sophie like My Book of Bible Stories, and I was like,
just a terrible book. I have some good memories of that book.
She looks at it every now and then, and I said, but I'm not going to. I've made up my mind. I told him
You told him that?
Yeah, I told him I thought about it. I even prayed about it at one point. I've made up my mind. I'm going with science. That's basically what I said. And then he asked he just wanted to know one more thing, like, what is it about this particular religion that I found so unappealing? And I was like, hypocrisy and homophobia has a lot to do with it.
After he just made his gay joke?
So I felt like that.
Nice job, man.
And he knows how hypocritical he is. He has to know it. So I was like, hypocrisy, homophobia, it's a lot of things. And then he hasn't come around.
Interesting. Do you still see him? Does he ever pop into the Olive Garden or anything?
Yeah, he does actually. He comes in there quite a bit.
I know our Uncle Russ, for a while, was coming by right after the baby was born.
Yeah.
Basically doing the same thing.
Nah, kind of. They were really.
They brought like literature and stuff, right?
Sometimes, not every time. They would come over to see the baby.
Okay.
And then like sometimes the conversation would kind of go towards that, but it would leave like a lot of times they'd come out just while they were out in service, and there's people downstairs. I think one time he might have left a magazine like as a joke. Oh, you're our call. It's our excuse to come see the baby. And there was a couple comments like, now that there is a baby, you really need to think about this. And
yeah, I'm sure.
No. The answer is no, forever. I mean, I seriously can't even take a conversation like that seriously. Like, it's just such a joke to me now.
Do you remember when that
They're
happened?
They're just people. They're just everyday. Like, you think
was there a moment though?
No, not really.
Where you're like, you know what? This is bullshit. I just don't believe it anymore.
Not really.
It kind of happened gradually, right?
But it's not even a matter of believing in it, because
that's all it comes down to is believing in it or not.
No, most of them don't even believe in it. They only stay in it because it's just their life. And the thing is, it's not like you're a cop and like, oh, you're just a person, but you're a cop. No, these people are just everyday people. This is their extracurricular activity. I don't want to be a part of it anymore. Like, if you're playing Dungeons and Dragons and you're like doomed and I don't know. I need to know about role playing games before I reference them. But like if you have to play the rest of the game but with certain punishments. No, I don't want to play the game anymore. So let's talk to each other like when you're not in D&D mode, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like it's your extracurricular activity and I have no interest in it. It shouldn't mean that you're not allowed to talk to me anymore. Don't take it that seriously.
But everybody does.
Yeah,
until
everybody
they
does.
don't.
And this guy I met at Olive Garden, he got disfellowshipped, and he was talking about, he said, I didn't want to get disfellowshipped, so I disassociated myself. I just had to write out a letter and blah, blah, blah. Like, what? Write out a letter? You couldn't get me. If it was part of my job.
I just left town.
Yeah.
When shit went bad for me, I just split the fuck out of town, man. That's
But-
literally what I did. And I don't think about it even now, like coming to visit you in Yakima. I mean, it's been several years.
It's
since
just
I
going to
left.
be like if it's...
But if I run into somebody like that I knew as a Jehovah's Witness, that was at one time my contemporary, it's fucking awkward for me.
Well, yeah, but that's just like if you run into storytelling or some ex-girlfriend that you've talked shit about. Like, it shouldn't be... I don't know. They're so fucking high and mighty.
I know, and it seems silly that I can't get over that in my own head. Like, I'm still, a part of me I think is still a little worried about the fact that they're disapproving of me. Even though I disapprove of the entire fucking religion.
Yeah.
Like, it's, religion as a whole, sure, it pisses me off. I don't really care. Like, I just care when it comes specifically to Jehovah's Witnesses, I guess, because I've been there. And, like, I know most of them are miserable. I think when I see it, like, secular religions, as they would refer to them as, like, my friend Haley, who's been on the show before, she's, like, full-out Christian. And while she doesn't approve of some of the things that I do, like, it's not like she really holds it against me. She'll make an occasional jab or something, but she'll still hang out. Like,
Right.
It's not a matter of life and death that I went outside to smoke a cigarette.
Right.
I mean,
She
ultimately
won't,
it
like,
is, but...
threaten the end of your entire speaking relationship over
Right.
the things she doesn't approve of you
And I think J-Dubs love that, man. They love having that power. Like, that's, I mean, like we've mentioned before, the numbers are depleting. Like 5 million and counting, but backwards.
Yeah.
That's where they're at right now. Like, it's such a small fraction of the world, but they're all so dumb.
Yeah.
Like, it's unbelievable how dumb they are.
Especially like I hate the younger.
They're dumb in the sense that they are not willing to look outside the box
Yeah.
because they're not allowed to.
Yeah.
But who falls for that after so long? Like, I felt like we got to a certain age where we're like, what have we done?
Yeah.
Like, we dumped most of our life down the toilet in that fucking religion. Quite honestly.
It was just a big waste of time in our lives.
Yeah. It was a big waste of 2 hours every Thursday evening
Yeah.
where I had to put on a suit.
Maybe that's why we're so unmotivated now. We put years into something.
How dare you, first of all.
That turned out to be like a joke, and we don't want to commit to that again. I do. I always think about how everything's going to go wrong. Like, if I start going to college, like, oh, something's going to happen to where it's not going to work out. Religion didn't work out. God didn't work out.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't think of it that way. I think you're just a pessimist through and through.
Sometimes I think a little deeper than most.